Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Thursday, October 11th, 2018. A late night of sports last night. I'm going to actually start with hockey, which I haven't done all year, since probably the Stanley Cup final, I should say. Then I'll talk a little NBA preseason. There was a fun game last night between the Lakers and the Warriors. Do my NBA GM rankings. The NHL power rankings I'll do after I go over all the games for hockey for tonight and last night's games. I'll also be doing the bowl projections for college football week 7. And then I'll be doing my picks for Eagles, Giants, and the 2 college football games being played tonight. All right, here we go. Hockey, last night, the Stanley Cup final rematch. The Capitals defeated the Golden Knights 5-2. Golden Knights hung around. They got a goal taken away from them on a challenge. The Capitals are now 2-0-1. Vegas is 1-3, so slow start for the reigning Western Conference champion. Evgeny Kuznetsov was the best player on the ice last night with a goal and 3 assists. He was the number 1 star. Number 2 star, Alex Ovechkin with 2 goals. And the number 3 star of the game was Nicholas Backstrom with a goal and an assist. The Flyers defeated the Senators 7-4. Philadelphia, good bounce-back win after their terrible loss to San Jose on Tuesday night. They're 2-2-0. Ottawa 1-2-1. Ottawa was competitive in this game, but Philadelphia pulled away late. Quadro, number 3 star of the game with a goal and assist. Number 2 star of the game, rookie Brady Tkachuk. 2 goals and an assist. He's a keeper for the Senators. He could very well be in the conversation as a Calder candidate that people probably didn't expect before the season. Even though we're only a few games in, but he has to be at least considered for a top 10 spot. But you never know with injuries and whatnot. Number 1 is Jacob Voracek. 2 goals and 3 assists. That was a 5-point performance by Voracek to help lead Philly to their bounce-back win. Late night, the Coyotes defeated the Ducks 3-2 in a shootout for their first win of the season. They are 1-2-0. Anaheim 3-0-1. The number 3 star of the game was Ryan Kessler, who returned from injury with a goal. Number 2 star of the game was Clayton Keller with an assist. And the number 1 star of the game was Ben Street from the Ducks with a goal. Tonight's slate's a bigger slate, 9 games. Sharks, Rangers, Oilers, Bruins, Avalanche, Sabres, Blue Jackets, Panthers, Capitals, Devils, Golden Knights, Penguins are your 7 o'clock games. Sharks, Rangers looking for their first win. I think this could be it. The Sharks on the East Coast. Usually teams that go to the East Coast from the West Coast sometimes trip up a couple times, like you saw the Sharks trip up at the Islanders. That was predictable. Good bounce-back win, big bounce-back win at the Flyers. Maybe they plot yet another road win here. Maybe the Rangers get their first win of the year. The Rangers played well in their home opener against Nashville. They're okay in Buffalo. The Sabres put that game late on an empty net goal, and then the Rangers lost the high-scoring affair in Carolina, in which they played their backup goalie. If Lundqvist plays the Carolina game, they probably win. And say the backup plays in Buffalo, they probably still lose that game. Oilers, Bruins. Oilers looking for their first win. They lost to the Devils in Europe, and now they return to the U.S. and take on a Bruins team that's played pretty well since their opening game against the Capitals. The Avalanche and the Sabres are 2-2-1 teams. If Buffalo can get a win here, they gotta feel good about themselves. They got a big-time win over the Vegas Golden Knights on Monday. They won that game against the Rangers, in which I think they had to win that game, because let's face it, they're a better team than the Rangers this year. And their one loss was against Boston in a game which the Bruins are just a better team than the Sabres, and the Bruins had to bounce back from that debacle in D.C. Avalanche, good start so far this year. They have the win over the Wild. They lost at Columbus. Forget where else they won, but that should be an interesting game. Blue Jackets, Panthers. Panthers only played 1 game this year. They lost in a shootout to Tampa Bay It's okay. No fault in losing to the Tampa Bay Lightning in Tampa. They gave the Lightning a great game. And then the Blue Jackets coming off the big win against Colorado. They lost to Carolina last week. I forget their other results so far this year. I'll have to look it up. Oh, they beat the Red Wings in their first game in Detroit. So that's where their other win came from. But that should be a good game between two teams I picked to make the playoffs before the season. The Capitals and the Devils. Could be a spot where Washington can get tripped up. Washington better not take New Jersey for granted. New Jersey got the win in Europe over the Oilers in a game which I was very surprised to see that they were an underdog in that game. That was ridiculous. Connor McDavid over a team that made the playoffs a year ago on a neutral pretty much. They shouldn't have been favored in that game. That wasn't fair. They're actually favored tonight over the Capitals, which this game probably should be a pick'em considering that Washington's off to a tremendous start. They're 2-0-1. Their one loss was in a shootout in Pittsburgh in that high-scoring affair, and then they beat the Knights last night and the Bruins on that opening night. So 2 national TV home wins, and then the loss in Pittsburgh, and then, like I said, the Devils won against the Oilers. So that should be an interesting game. And then the Golden Knights and the Penguins, Vegas, slow start. They lost in Buffalo. They lost in D.C. Their lone win came in their second game of the year against the Minnesota Wild in a shootout. And then they lost their home opener against the Philadelphia Flyers on national television. And disappointing for Vegas is that Marc-Andre Fleury's not playing in this game because that would have been fun. Fleury back in Pittsburgh. But we saw that last year, and he got a really nice hand from the Penguins faithful, which he deserves. Penguins, on the other hand, are 1-1. They had the shootout win over the Capitals, and then they lost badly at home to the inferior Canadiens. So they have one bad loss already, Pittsburgh does. So I'm interested to see how this game goes. Matt Murray has a concussion. So I would lean Golden Knights there. Surprised that none of these games are on national TV, because usually NBCSN does have a couple Thursday games earlier in the year. Maybe they do. I know they definitely do it later in the year a lot, but I know sometimes early in the season they do it on the Thursday. But I know they had 2 Thursday games last week. They aired that Ranger Predator game, and they also had that Golden Knights Flyers game. That was on Thursday last week. They had a doubleheader. NBCSN did. 7:30 games. You have the Kings and the Canadiens, the Maple Leafs and the Red Wings, the Canucks and the Lightning. Kings, Canadiens. The Kings are 1-1. So that's not the worst thing in the world. They beat the Red Wings at home on Sunday. Their first game, they lost in overtime to San Jose. And then on Tuesday, they lost to the Jets. So it makes sense. The 1-1 makes sense for them. That's what probably they should be. Although you could argue they should have beaten San Jose. Meanwhile, the Canadiens are 1-0-1. Their win came in Pittsburgh against the Penguins. The Penguins took the Canadiens for granted. Give Montreal a lot of credit for that one. That was a really good win. And then their loss was an overtime loss at the hands of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, nothing to be upset about with the Canadiens. They have to feel good about themselves. So, and they have an opportunity to win here tonight at home. Maple Leafs, Red Wings, Mike Babcock back in Detroit is like an interesting little subplot, even though that's happened a couple times already. The Maple Leafs are 3-1. They have wins over the Canadiens, the Stars, and the Blackhawks, and their lone loss came at home against the inferior Ottawa Senators. So they have a chance to go to 4-1 tonight. Red Wings, meanwhile, 0-1-2. They have a chance here to get their first win against their former coach. They lost 2 games, earning a point, one being in overtime in their first game against the Blue Jackets and the other coming in a shootout against the Ducks. And then they lost in Los Angeles against the Kings on Sunday. Canucks Lightning. Lightning, this is only their second game. They won against the Panthers in the shootout. Vancouver, they're 1-2-0. They won on opening night against the Flames. And then they lost to the Flames. And then they got beat by the Blue Jackets. Carolina. I knew it was an Eastern Conference team. I just wasn't sure who it was. Flames and the Blues at 8 o'clock, as well as Jets Predators and Blackhawks Wild. Flames Blues. Flames off to a pretty good start. They're 2-2. They have each a win and a loss. They're 2-1. They split with the Canucks, and then they have the really good win at Nashville. St. Louis, meanwhile, 0-1-1. Lost to the Blackhawks in overtime on Saturday night at home, and then got blown out by Winnipeg on Thursday last week. So, opportunity for them to get their first win of the year. Jets Predators, the 2 best teams in the Central Division, facing off. Western Conference semifinal rematch. Predators are 2-1. They have the win at the Rangers. They have a win at the Islanders and the home loss to Calgary. Winnipeg is also 2-1. They beat the Kings on Tuesday night. They lost badly at Dallas on Saturday, and then they killed St. Louis on Thursday last week. So it should be an interesting one there. Blackhawks Wild. Blackhawks trying to keep their surprisingly good start going. They have wins over the Blues and the Senators, both road games. Ironically, all 3 of their games went to overtime this year. And they did lose an overtime affair to the Maple Leafs at home on Sunday. Minnesota, meanwhile, looking for their first win. They only played 2 games. They lost in a shootout to Vegas on Saturday and lost in Colorado on Thursday. This is a nice opportunity for Minnesota to get their first win. Now we're going to get to the power rankings. I talked about the teams that are playing tonight more in depth. And the teams that are not playing tonight, I'll talk about a little bit more in my power rankings as I go through them. Number 31 is the Detroit Red Wings. I talked about them a little bit. 30 is the Ottawa Senators. Talked about them a little bit as they lost to Philly yesterday. 29 is the Canucks. Elias Peterson is an absolute stud. 28 is the Arizona Coyotes, got their first win last night. 27 is the New York Rangers, looking for their first win of the year. 26 is the New York Islanders, who have impressed me a lot, especially with their win over San Jose. 25 is the Montreal Canadiens. They were impressive in their win in Pittsburgh. 24 is the Edmonton Oilers. They only played 1 game and they lost comfortably against New Jersey in Europe. 23 is the Calgary Flames. They're 2-1. Nice win for them in Nashville, like I just mentioned. 22 is the Buffalo Sabres. They're off to a great start. 21 is the New Jersey Devils. Not their fault that they're here. It's just that they only played 1 game. So when I do these power rankings, I might do them on Wednesdays on the podcast. But I'm just doing them today because a lot of teams have only played 1 game or 2 games or whatever. So I probably should have waited till tomorrow to do this, but Fridays are usually about football on the podcast when I pick all the football games. And I also have the 2 league championship series to predict on tomorrow's podcast as well. But the Devils, I think they'll be fine. They're in good shape. They have the Caps at home tonight. Let's see what they do. 20s, the Blackhawks. They probably are a little too low, but I'm not buying it yet. They're giving up goals left and right. I think you can make a case this team should be 0-3, but you can also make a case that this team should be 3-0. But Corey Crawford's hurt, and their defense is not very good, although they'll score goals. Them and the New York Rangers, I think, are very similar teams in that I think their offense will score, but they're going to give up a lot of goals too. 19 is the Los Angeles Kings. I talked about them and how they're 1-1-1. 18 is the Minnesota Wild, still searching for their first win. Have a nice opportunity at home tonight against the Blackhawks. 17 is the Colorado Avalanche, who are 2-1. Have a chance to get the 3-1 with a win at Buffalo tonight. 16 is the Dallas Stars. They're off to a really, really nice start. I probably have them too low. 15 is the Florida Panthers. I can't fault them for losing in Tampa Bay in a shootout. I still think this team is going to be very good. 14 is the Pittsburgh Penguins. I probably have this team, meanwhile, too high. They lost bad at home to the Canadiens. You could make a case they should have lost to Washington at home last week, too. 13 is the St. Louis Blues. I think they're going to be okay. Number 12 is the Vegas Golden Knights. They're 1-3. I probably have this team too high, too. But a little bit's a hangover, a little bit is being on the East Coast. And their schedule's been tough as well. 11 is the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're a team that is 2-1. I know the story about them all year is going to be what happens with Sergei Bobrovsky and Artemi Panarin. 10 is the Philadelphia Flyers. A little Jekyll and Hyde, I gotta be honest. That was a terrible performance against San Jose on national TV the other day. And impressive by them to bounce back in Ottawa against the Senators, even though the Senators are terrible. 9 is the Carolina Hurricanes. I'm very impressed with this team. Their offense has improved. Their defense has improved. They've had some fine goaltending other than that Rangers game. 8 is the Winnipeg Jets. They're 2-1. I probably have this team too low, but I just didn't like how they looked in Dallas the other day. 7 is the Boston Bruins. They rebounded nicely after that disastrous Capitals game. 6 is the San Jose Sharks. A little Jekyll and Hyde from them too. Losing bad against the Islanders and bouncing back in Philadelphia. Big game tonight at the Garden against the Rangers. They have a real chance to get the 3-2 on the year. Although that could be a trap spot for them as they're looking ahead a little bit, because I always have my theory about West Coast teams on the East Coast, and the same thing about East Coast teams on the West Coast. 5 is the Nashville Predators. They kind of been Jekyll and Hyde too. They had that bad loss to Calgary. You can make a case should have lost to the Rangers. And then that Islanders win was a close one too. 4 is the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're better than number 4. But there's just been 3 more teams that have been more impressive for them. It's not the Lightning's fault that they're number 4. It's only because they only played 1 game and they won in a shootout against Florida, which was impressive. I'll give them credit for that. 3 is the Toronto Maple Leafs. You can make a case they should be 2 or 1 or 4 or 5, but they belong in the top 5. I have them 3rd, so they belong in my top 3. They're scoring goals left and right. They don't even need William Nylander. I think they should trade him for a defenseman. We talked about yesterday or a couple days ago on the podcast how they probably should have used him as an asset last year to try to get Erik Karlsson or Ryan McDonough, but they failed to do so. Ottawa or the Rangers would have gladly taken Nylander. Number 2 is the Anaheim Ducks. They're pretty impressive. They have 7 points on the year. They probably should have 8. They should have absolutely beaten the Coyotes yesterday, but they didn't. But they've certainly been impressive. Ryan Kessler's back. They have good goaltending, good defense. And number 1, your reigning Stanley Cup champion Washington Capitals. They've been very impressive. They probably should have beaten Pittsburgh last week, or else they'd be unbeaten. They had a great win against Vegas last night, a great win over Boston to open the year. Trap game tonight in New Jersey, though. I talked about that a few minutes ago, and that's it for the power rankings. I want to talk about last night's preseason game in the NBA between the Lakers and the Warriors. That was really fun to watch between 2 teams that are going to be great all year. Lakers won the game, 123-113, but this game was all about the first half and all the stars playing in it. LeBron James was in midseason form. He hit the buzzer beater at the end of the half. Brandon Ingram was pretty good for the Lakers with 26 points. Stephen Curry had 26 points. LeBron had 15 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. Draymond Green didn't even play due to left knee soreness. Lakers played all their regulars. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope shot the 3 ball pretty good. Kyle Kuzma played well. He had 22 points. So this was a nice preseason win for the Lakers. And I know you're not supposed to overreact the preseason, but this was just an entertaining game to watch. LeBron played, Curry played, Durant played, and by the way, Durant, 18 points in 24 minutes. Klay Thompson, 20 points in 27 minutes. So, Warriors had most of their regulars, and obviously Boogie is rehabbing from the Achilles. So, just wanted to talk about that preseason game a little bit, as the season will start on Tuesday. And now I'm going to do my NBA GM rankings. I'm going to go from 29 to 1. Don't forget Detroit's GM job is open, so there's only 25 GMs to rank. In terms of the rest of the NBA things I'm going to do, Saturday I'm going to do the team power rankings. Sunday I'm going to do the top 100 players. And then Monday I'm doing a special podcast regarding the season. I'm going to do the standings and predict who's going to win the title, who wins all the awards, breakout players, duds, make or break players, all-star teams, and a lot more. The NBA season is very fun to predict. Oh, and bold predictions for every team as well. So that's going to be on Monday night. So to the GM rankings we go. As I mentioned, 29 to 1. Number 29, I have James Jones of the Suns. He's new. 27, I have Elton Brand of the 76ers. 27 is the new GM of the Hawks, who was hired last year, Travis Schnelk. 26, Vlade Divac of the Kings. 25 is Colby Altman of the Cavs. 24 is John Horst of the Bucks. 23 is Scott Layden of the Timberwolves. 22, Chris Wallace of the Grizzlies. 21 is Andy Ellisberg of the Heat. There's a little bit of an asterisk there because, let's face it, Pat Riley does these moves and whatnot. Ellisberg's just the GM. There's a couple of these quote-unquote just GM guys that are really the executives above making the moves. 20 is Ernie Grunfeld of the Wizards. 19 is Dell Demps of the Pelicans. 18 is Mitch Kupchak of the Hornets. 17 is Scott Perry of the Knicks. 16 is John Hammond of the Magic. 15 is Gar Forman of the Bulls. 14 is Chad Buchanan of the Pacers. 13 is Michael Winger of the Clippers. 12 is Rob Pelinka of the Lakers. This is another scenario where it's really Magic Johnson doing the work, really not Rob Pelinka. 11 is Arturas Karnasovas of the Nuggets. 10 is Sean Marks of the Nets. I'm just impressed of what he's done since taking over that franchise after the mess Billy King left. 9, Dennis Lindsey Jazz. 8, Neil O'Shea Blazers. 7, Donnie Nelson Mavericks. 6, Masai Ujiri Raptors. 5, Sam Presti Thunder. 4, Bob Myers Warriors. 3, Darrell Morey Rockets. 2, R.C. Buford Spurs. And number 1, Danny Ainge Boston Celtics. You can make a case for the top 4 guys on this list, but I decided to go with Ainge because he took advantage of a golden opportunity by trading aging players at the right time a couple years ago with Garnett and Pierce. And I talked about the mess Billy King left in Brooklyn. Danny Ainge deserves a lot of props for trading those guys at the right time, getting a lot of value, and get 2 great players in the draft, and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And the other trades he's made have been fantastic, such as Kyrie Irving, as well as trading away Rajon Rondo and getting value for that. I think that pick turned into Terry Rozier, so that's another A+ for Danny Ainge. There's been some bad ones that Ainge has done too. And even Ainge would admit it himself that there's been some misses. But hey, I had to give Ainge credit. He's the best GM in the league right now. And next I want to do my bowl projections for week 7 of the college season. I do this each and every Thursday, as you guys know. I'm going to start with the college football playoff like I do each and every week. I have Clemson and Alabama in the Cotton Bowl. Alabama 1 seed, Clemson 4 seed. In the Orange Bowl, I have number 2 Ohio State and number 3 Georgia. Rest of the New Year's 6. Peach Bowl, Notre Dame, Penn State. Fiesta Bowl, UCF and Miami. Rose Bowl, Washington and Michigan. I made a change there. And Sugar Bowl, Oklahoma and LSU. Other bowl games. The New Mexico Bowl, Marshall and Utah State. Cure Bowl, Memphis and Arkansas State. The Vegas Bowl, Utah and San Diego State. Camellia Bowl, Northern Illinois and Troy. New Orleans Bowl, Coastal Carolina and FIU. Boca Raton, North Texas and Temple. Frisco Bowl, Tulane and UAB. Crispilla Bowl, Cincinnati and Florida State. Bahamas Bowl, Toledo and FAU. Famous Idaho Potato Bowl, Western Michigan and Boise State. The Birmingham Bowl, South Florida and Vandy. Armed Forces Bowl, Army and Houston. Dollar General Bowl, Buffalo and Appalachian State. Hawaii Bowl, Louisiana Tech and Hawaii. First Responder Bowl, Middle Tennessee and Iowa State. Quick Lane Bowl, Syracuse and Northwestern. Cheez-It Bowl, Oklahoma State and Washington State. Independence Bowl, Duke and Southern Miss. Pinstripe Bowl, Virginia Tech and Maryland. Texas Bowl, TCU and Mississippi State. Music City Bowl, Kentucky and Minnesota. The Camping World Bowl, North Carolina State and Texas. The Alamo Bowl, West Virginia and Oregon. Belk Bowl, Boston College and South Carolina. Arizona Bowl, Georgia Southern and New Mexico. Military Bowl, Navy and Virginia. The Hyundai Sun Bowl, BYU and Stanford. San Francisco Bowl, Indiana and USC. Liberty Bowl, Texas Tech and Missouri. Holiday Bowl, Michigan State and Colorado. Gator Bowl, Texas A&M and Wake Forest. Outback Bowl, Auburn and Iowa. The Citrus Bowl, Florida and Wisconsin. And that's it for the bowls this week. I'm going to do my picks. I'm going to do the college game first and do Eagles-Giants last. The 2 college games for tonight. The first one is Georgia Southern at Texas State. That's a 7:30 game on ESPNU. I'm going to take Georgia Southern here with the win. And I'm actually going to take Texas State to cover the 17.5, though. The over-under is 52.5. The second game on ESPN is Texas Tech and TCU. I think TCU wins the game, but Texas Tech covers the 7.5. The over-under is 58.5. And last but not least, Eagles-Giants. 8:20 on Fox. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Aaron Andrews, Christina Pink on the call. Actually, it might not even be Joe Buck, because Joe Buck has Dodgers-Brewers this weekend. So you may see Kenny Albert or even Kevin Burkhardt on the call this game, unless Joe Buck does the game tonight and then does an overnight to Milwaukee. So it's not a slam dunk that Joe Buck is or is not calling the game. I'd still say it's most likely Joe Buck, and he just does a red eye to Milwaukee tomorrow for the Brewers and the Dodgers. The Eagles are coming off a disappointing home loss against the Minnesota Vikings in the NFC title game rematch. The Giants are coming off a heartbreaking road loss in Charlotte against the Panthers. It's hard to believe that these two teams could have the same record after tonight, but here we are. There's a real chance of that. But you know what? Bad teams find ways to lose games. Who's a bad team? The New York Football Giants. So give me Philadelphia here on the road. There's going to be bad weather. I do think it's going to be a close game. Philadelphia wins this 23-16. And the Eagles are laying 1.5 points. The over-under is 44. I want to lay the 1.5, but I think the Giants actually have a chance to win the game outright. So I'm going to take under 44 as the play here. And 23 plus 16 equals 39. So the play here is the under 44. And that's it for the podcast today. We're back to our recapping Eagles-Giants. I'll pick the 2 championship league series. Red Sox-Astros starts Saturday. And Brewers-Dodgers begins tomorrow night. I'll also be doing picks for Week 6 in the NFL and the rest of college football Week 7. And I hope you guys have a great day, everybody.